Hey, we don't know anything for sure yet. Maybe he's still out there.
I know he's dead.
Hi, I'm Sean.
And I'm Adam.
This is SasqWatch.
So today we're going to be talking about the 1980 film.
Night of the Demon.
That's the one.
Did you forget?
It's just, yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
Even though it's one of the more memorable names, it's not one of the more memorable films, I would say, so far. That's saying something.
Yeah. Well, I had picked this one to go next because I knew it was on Amazon Prime. And of course, when I went to watch it, they had removed it from Prime, which seems to be typical for the show so far. So I did have to buy it. I know that there's some VHS copies floating around there somewhere.
Lie and whore. I bring you to the Lord.
The plot. What is the plot of this movie?
Okay, so in Night of the Demon, you're following Professor Nugent, who is a cryptozoology professor.
We never find out what he teaches. I had that in my notes multiple times. I think I wrote 3 or 4 times, what does he teach? Because he's talking about Bigfoot, but that's the only thing we ever see them talk about in class.
He cares about Bigfoot a lot. I don't
Yeah.
think the students care about Bigfoot as much. I think they're...
But,
because it's not the whole class that goes on the trip. It's just, 5 of the kids.
Okay.
So it can't be a
That's
full
true.
class trip. It's probably just is there extra credit in college?
Well, see, that's what let's just assume he's the cryptozoology professor.
They didn't offer that class at the college I went to.
Right, me neither. What college has a cryptozoology?
I bet there is a
major?
college with it. I bet it's out there. Maybe he's a minor.
Minor, yeah, he's an adjunct.
I can see that.
I can see that.
He feels like an adjunct professor.
Who authorized this trip, though? Because I'm sure you have to tell the school about
No,
this,
I don't
right?
think he told anyone. I think he picked the kids that were gonna, the kids that go and hang out with him after class. He told them to go with him on this trip. This trip are they going out there to find Bigfoot?
That
they
was
are.
what I understood. Yeah.
Because he's talking to the lady that he's in bed with, and he's like, if he's out there, someone's gonna shoot him. We've got to go out there and
Find it.
we've got to go out there and find him.
Because if they exist, it's important to know now. Some creature surviving up in the forest, he won't be much longer. Some asshole's gonna kill him, you know that.
There's the Professor Nugent and there's the kids, or his gang, because they feel like his gang. I don't remember their names. I know there's Gary's in there. I think there's a Roy and a Linda.
I don't know which ones are which, but I think we got Roy. I think we got Carla. She's the one whose dad died.
Yeah, Carla's dad. She's chipper about it. She's like,
She's
over there is where my dad died.
This is it. I remember this part of the river. It was only a few miles back in there where my father was killed.
They're hard to distinguish, because I know Gary gets his back ripped up during sex by Bigfoot. That's a confusing scene. The kids are all just a blob of youth that follow Professor Nugent on his quest to find Bigfoot. What the film really, there's intermittent scenes of them playing Scooby-Doo where they're breaking up looking for clues, and then there's Professor Nugent's story time where we go into the flashbacks where most of the kills in the movie are.
Right, and it's always immediate. It's he'll be like, oh, and then there was the time there was a woodsman out here. And then you'll see the woodsman, and then 30 seconds later the woodsman will be dead, and then he'll be like, and then there was the time that there was some Girl Scouts out here. You'll see the Girl Scouts for 30 seconds, and then they'll be dead. And then it'll cut back to them, and they'll go back, and they'll go to sleep, and they'll wake up, and they'll walk around the woods.
Yeah.
Some kid will be like, "Oh, I could climb a tree. Maybe we could see Bigfoot from there."
He's like, good idea. We'll do that.
Yeah, once he continually, not only is he bringing these kids out here to this dangerous place and being like, "Oh, this is where people have been going missing and dying, so we better post a watch tonight."
Yeah, I think there's like 6 or 7 flashbacks in the movie, and almost all of them are Professor Nugent's flashbacks.
And it's always the same kind of formula where it's like character dies in flashback.
Yeah, I think it goes, the first one is the Carla's dad. He gets his arms ripped off by Bigfoot, and then the blood fills the Bigfoot, which the movie's getting extra points for that.
That's like all it's getting points for.
Blood fill the Bigfoot. I mean, what a better way to prove that it is indeed a Bigfoot. The van scene, that one's my favorite. That scene alone. All the scenes feel like they all go on really long. It feels like they're using every scrap of footage they've got. They like told the editor, like, don't use it all. You can cut around
every little bit you've got of
yeah, and that one, the van's, every scene's a little bit confusing. There's always some element that you're like, wait a minute, because the van one, I think it was Carla or maybe Linda, one of the students is like, well, the girl saw her boyfriend viciously murdered by Bigfoot. But at the end of the van scene, it looks like she's dead, doesn't it?
Right, and if she is dead, then how do they know that she saw a Bigfoot kill her boyfriend? Yeah,
or the third one's more mysterious. That's the one where the kids are like, all right, we're setting up camp, Professor Nugent. And he's like, not too long ago, there was a motorcyclist that came through here. It pulled over to the side of the road, and he's just taking a leak, and Bigfoot just like rips his wiener off.
We're already in Bigfoot territory, where all those people were killed. Not far from here, a motorcyclist was found. Apparently he'd been riding along and stopped for a moment at the side of the path. By the time he found him, he'd bled to death. Well, we better get some sleep. I want to get a fresh start in the morning.
He's
like, how do you know?
Pops up, rips his wiener off, and he's like stumbling to the bike, and his blood just spraying out of his pants everywhere. And Professor Nugent's like, yeah, and they found him dead, and it must have been Bigfoot.
Yeah, because that's his MO.
Yeah, people found his dead body, and they're like, this is the work of a creature. Surely no human being would
like
have
somebody
reason.
was murdered with an axe. 2 Girl Scouts were stabbed with their own knives. This dude had his penis ripped off. And they're not thinking it's like a serial killer. They're thinking like, oh, this is Bigfoot out here. Like,
Well, it's hard to tell how much is fact and how much is fantasy, but at least we've got something to go on.
The other really good one is the sleeping bag twirl. That's not even a flashback. That just happens.
it's not in a sleeping bag either. Does he just pick the guy up and do it?
I think he's in a sleeping bag.
Is he?
I'm pretty sure he's in a sleeping bag.
hope
It's
so.
very Jason-esque. But I think it was before Jason did his sleeping bag kill. I think Bigfoot did it first.
It's hard to tell what's happening because they're like about this close the entire time to whatever you're seeing, so it's hard to really tell what's going on.
And about a third of the dialogue in the movie is indecipherable. There's times where they're talking and you just lose. It becomes noise.
And why did it attack us when it took the boat?
I mean, that's kind of getting into the execution a little bit, but there's not really much else. I mean, we get this scenes that bookend the story where we get him at the beginning. He's in a hospital. It doesn't help the poor sound quality that somebody decided to put him in some sort of brace that covers him from here down.
Yeah.
So he's just trying to tell his story like this.
Inspector Slack from the Sheriff's Department is here. He has some questions he'd like to ask you. He'd like to know what happened to you and your students. Oh, yes. I want to tell him. I want to tell everyone what's going on in that forest.
The Professor Nugent literally tells the gang to split up and search for clues around town. And while they're doing that, they learn about the legend of Crazy Wanda as this woman that lives way out in the woods and supposedly maybe had a mongoloid child that didn't survive. And then next to that, you hear whispers of this like cult of people living out in the woods and worshiping something. And you're like, I don't know what that's all about.
You see them once.
Yeah, there's only in one scene.
And they just kind of shoo them away. They just kind of like show up and scare them off, and then they never come back in the movie.
Professor Nugent wakes up at night in his tent, and he hears some noises. So, just like Mrs. Frizzle, he goes and grabs a couple kids, and he's like, let's go into the woods to go see what this noise is. So they get out there, and they see a bunch of people. Some of them are dressed like a cult. Some of them just a guy in like a flannel shirt standing there. And they're having like a ritual. They've got Crazy Wanda tied up naked, and I think they were like gonna have some sort of ceremonial rape scene, but they've also got a wicker foot there.
Wicker foot?
Yeah, it's like a wicker Bigfoot, it's not a statue, I don't know what you call those. Effigy there. And so Professor Nugent shoos away the cult people, and they stop. Somehow the Bigfoot catches on fire and burns. Then the plot just goes from there. And at one point during the ceremony, they refer to Bigfoot as Moloch, I think. And you did some research into that.
Yeah, I did some research into that. Moloch is first mentioned because he was like one of the Canaanite gods that were kind of existed. That I looked into those. There's a whole bunch of them. They were like gods of the Semitic people. I think maybe what they were doing before Judaism kind of came around. And he was one of those. They sacrificed children to him, so that's like the one connection. There's this cult. They sacrifice.
So when you give me that information and I weigh it next to what the film presented, the conclusion I come to is that the cultists are just wrong. There's the people up there that are, I don't know if they worship Bigfoot or fear him, but whatever they think about him seems to not be true.
If you can understand me, I'd like you to say yes.
You go from there, the kids hike around for a little bit, and they find Crazy Wanda in her shack, and she doesn't really communicate very well. So they just come into her house, basically, and set up to camp inside her living room.
And she's like, I guess, lived with this trauma for most of her life, and so she's like barely able even to communicate, and so they hypnotize her, and then she's a totally normal person after that.
Yeah.
And then she's able to tell them the double flashback story where we see a flashback, and then I think there's like a flashback, and then we have a flash forward that's still part of the flashback. I know that happens.
That's what it is. So it flashes. This is both the worst part of the movie and the most confusing. It goes back to when Wanda was 15, and I think she kissed the boy or like something.
Yeah, I think so.
Barely.
Or she was just like hanging out with him. I can't remember.
Yeah, and her father just like goes crazy, and he's just your stereotypical like backwoods dude who's like very religious. that's basically his whole character. And he's just like, you're sinning, you're evil, Wanda. I'm embarrassed about you. And then it seems like, is it that exact moment or that night or somehow?
I don't know. Time passes.
She goes out at night, and then it's really dark and hard to see. But basically, Bigfoot appears from the woods and then rapes Wanda there, which is a pretty bad scene, pretty awful scene. But it doesn't stop there, because her dad comes out onto the porch wielding a gun and sees this and stands there and starts like pontificating about how he's conflicted. I think he says like, Lord, you confound me, because he doesn't know.
As if he thinks that's what's going on.
He thinks maybe God has
the
sent
will of God.
Bigfoot to punish his daughter for her wickedness, I guess. That scene eventually ends. Eventually ends. And then we flash forward, but not to the present, which is the present is in itself a flashback. But we go forward through her pregnancy, and she gets pregnant.
Oh, right.
Which we talked about in our last episode, how it's confusing to us that Bigfoot can get women pregnant. And this film's answer to that is Professor Nugent says, well, horses and mules, that works. So this must work. I don't want to get into the weeds again of the science, but we'll just, it works, I guess. She gets pregnant, carries the baby to term, and then right as it's born, I think the dad kills it.
Yeah.
He kills it.
Wanda, it's all over. It's all over. That's all past it. That was a long time ago. Calm down.
After we get the last Wanda flashback, the Professor Nugent and the gang decide to go outside to the graveyard, and they dig up the bones of the dead infant. And I thought the skull looked way too big to be a dead infant, just because it was like just a skull. I'm like, where's the rest of them?
Oh my God. Wanda was telling the truth. And it is the Bigfoot.
The end of the movie, Bigfoot just straight up breaks into the cabin and just kills all the kids. It was great.
That's not the end.
That was the part that I guess we'll skip to my rating, but I really enjoyed seeing Bigfoot kill those kids. This was the first movie that I think really delivered on the promise of Bigfoot just killing kids.
You only had to wait until the last 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, but when I got there, it was pretty cool.
I became aware of wandering in the forest. The next thing I knew, I was in this hospital room.
The movie didn't look very good. We talked about in Legend of Bogey Creek how you kind of got a warm, hazy feeling from that footage. I feel like this footage, yeah, it's something got taken out of the soup, and it's a little just kind of fuzzy and just.
It's like a scratchy blanket.
Yeah.
It's not like a warm blanket.
Yeah.
In addition to not looking good, this movie doesn't sound good. In fact, it's hard to hear any of it.
No, subtitles are actually, I think that's a big benefit.
Required.
Yeah, required.
For some of the scenes. There's a scene early on where they're in a lecture, and I don't know if it's probably that room they're in, but you cannot, it sounds like everybody's talking through like a foot of foam.
What happened to the people? Well, if it was a bear, it sure didn't move like one.
I remember that scene because I remember thinking, like, well, there's a lot more kids in this room. Like, well, he only brings like the 5. So you're like, where's everybody else in class? And nobody else cared enough to want to go camping with Professor Nugent?
I wouldn't want to go camping with Professor Nugent. His stories are terrible.
Didn't it seem like he was staying in the same tent as some of those kids? Because like when he wakes up, it's like he's right there next to him in his sleeping bag.
I didn't notice that, but I hope
Yeah,
not.
he he does like one of these.
I mean, they're in
It's
college,
what was that
so I
noise
guess.
outside, kids? I would say all of the writing is I don't really think about the writing because it's just confusing. You got the
Right.
cult, you've got the whatever Bigfoot's ideas about mating are because they seem to be kind of muddled because it's like he rapes her and then the child dies and then it seems like he still like hangs out near Wanda, like is he like protecting her or
I mean, I think
or-
maybe he
what-
viewed her as a mate. That's what I guessed at, because he like brought her stuff. We had some editing again, not as bad as in some of them. We already talked about earlier with the girls getting stabbed and the camera being like way too close.
Every scene feels like it's all the footage. It feels like the editor really had to work to hit the 90-minute mark. And this one,
Just threw in everything he
Yeah.
could. She was like, "Yeah, I got to make this scene 30 seconds longer."
more than 30. There were some scenes. The van scene goes on forever, but I loved all of it. All of it.
I didn't love it at all. There's nothing to love there.
Yeah, I loved the kills of this movie. I think all of the parts without Bigfoot murdering people have kind of faded from my memory already, but all of
They're
the kill
so
scenes,
boring.
I think all of the kill scenes I was really happy about. And it works as a slasher movie for me. It works as like a grindhouse kind of nasty little expedition into Bigfoot world. I think it succeeds on some level there. I can see why people would discard it immediately because of the rape stuff, and I don't think they're wrong. But if you are just really want to see Bigfoot murder kids, which is where I'm coming from, this movie accomplishes those goals in a way that none of the other ones have.
Did you say the soundtrack
The
had
soundtrack,
the same kind of effect on you that other
the
famous
soundtrack,
stories?
I thought a lot about elevator music. It felt like that kind of
Especially in
like
the beginning.
yeah, it felt like you're kind of waiting for the next scene, and they put this on to kind of help you get there. Sorry, what?
What's up?
Hey,
What's going on?
So glad you're here. Here's your notes. Thank you. Thanks a lot for this.
What?
I'm
what
the new fill-in guy.
What?
Yeah, I got. So I know we talked about it, but I got something I got to do today. You should have talked to me before. I mean, we were sitting right here. I got something important I got to do.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Do you want to take your cat with you while you go?
He's gonna stay here. I don't think he can. I don't think he can go with me. So.
Oh,
I'll be back in like a couple
you-
hours.
you definitely
Oh,
don't
yeah.
have to worry. I pride myself on my my SasqWatch and Bigfoot knowledge. You know.
Okay. Did you watch the movie?
No, but I definitely know my Bigfoot. Yeah, he left me some notes. Poorly written.
The
Needs to
movie or
take
the
some-
notes?
Oh, the notes.
Okay.
The notes. Adam's got to work
Okay.
on his. He needs to take a calligraphy class.
So yeah, it's a bad score. It feels like somebody bought a can and they just a canned score and they just popped it open, threw that in there. It's like when you open a can of Vienna sausages and you see it and you're like, oh, that's food. Did you think the film had any overall social value?
Yeah. Culturally, I think it'll make a big difference.
Yeah?
I from what I hear, it's a good one.
It's a good one. Okay.
I can't really recall much of what I saw. I caught little chunks. I feel like just because I watched the trailer, I can say that like I got the
You
whole
got it?
premise of the movie.
You
I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
All right. I thought the film had, I don't know if social value is the right term, but I think it works as a late night movie with the right crowd. You know, if you're in the mood for some gory violence, you want to see Bigfoot mash the kids, I think this will get the job done. But you might want to have that remote handy to fast forward through the rapey parts. It has to lose some rating for the rapey stuff, but it also had the kills that I loved. I think I'm going to give it 3.5 big feet. And that's a bias rating, but that is my rating.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to score it a little bit lower. You know, I mean, you just can't really see Bigfoot very well. I mean, I really want a clear picture of my Bigfoot. I'm gonna have to go with 2 3/4.
2 3/4.
Yeah,
That's a higher rating than I was expecting for you.
You know, maybe one of these days I'll actually watch the movie.
Maybe I think you should. I think you should. Maybe even we could just do that real quick.
Yeah.
If you want to get up to speed.
This has a lot to do with Bigfoot. Welcome to the Bigfoot Breakdown.
So, what did you think of Bigfoot in this movie?
Okay, so during the break, I actually had a chance to get a couple of scenes of the movie in, and you know, this was not your fun-loving Bigfoot.
No.
I saw him tear somebody's innards out and fling them all over the room.
It seems like the designer of Bigfoot was like, oh, let's design this Bigfoot like it actually was a branch of human beings, can mate with human women, has more of a human face.
Very human, lifelike looking face.
Bigfoot understands tools. He uses like an axe, a pitchfork. He uses the saw to get to that man's innards. Well, he seems to mate for life in the film, or at least gets a strong attachment to Wanda after the child that he creates with her is murdered. The Professor Nugent's theory, I guess, is that Bigfoot tried to mate with Wanda in order to save his species. Which you'd think that he would try again, I guess, after the child died. I'm not sure what.
Wait, back it up here. So Bigfoot tried to reproduce with the human.
Yeah, there's the rape scene. There's a rape scene.
There's a rape scene in this Bigfoot movie.
Bigfoot is a sexual predator.
Sexual predator.
Yeah, he rips the man's wiener off, rapes Wanda, and then hangs out around her house the rest of his life. Yeah, so it seems like there's the Neanderthal approach, which is interesting. It is interesting. But then the script muddles it with this cult, and there's the demon aspect to it.
Oh, demon aspect.
Yeah, because the community in the film seems to view Bigfoot as a demon sent from God to punish Wanda for... I don't remember if she even kissed that kid. I think they were just, holding hands. Maybe not the strongest, although he is... Did you expect Bigfoot to be strong?
Yes. You know, Bigfoot is always known to be a very strong figure. You know, I'm sure he works out.
It was an especially angry Bigfoot. I don't know what he was doing on his downtime. I imagine usually I picture Bigfoot taking naps in the forest and rolling around in the river, but I don't know. This Bigfoot seemed to only want to kill.
He was out for justice. He was out for blood.
He was kind of a jerk. You know, I don't think that any families should go camping near here. But I don't know that Bigfoot eats anything. And like I've said before, I think the cultists are wrong about him being a demon. I know that's the title of the film, but I think they're just wrong. So I wonder, is he eating? I didn't see a lot of fruit, vegetables
fruits
out
and
there.
Berries. No.
Maybe fruits and berries.
Is he a carnivore or a herbivore?
We can only speculate.
All right, welcome to SasqWatch. Hey, I got it right that time. Let's see here. Oh, very unprepared, but, we're just going to go with it. Bigfoot was only in the movie for, 2 minutes and 41 seconds, huh? Wow. So, yep, 2 minutes and 41 seconds worth of screen time for this Bigfoot. Bigfoot kills 15 people? What?
Actually, one of those kills is human-on-human violence.
Scratch that. So, 14 people.
One of them's in a dream.
So Bigfoot kills 13 people. We aren't really sure the location of Bigfoot, but, in Northern California is where we speculate Bigfoot is located in this movie. Crossbreed, freakish, love baby child, it just did not survive, and we're not going to count that as a full Bigfoot. So 1.5. 1.5 Bigfoot in this movie. Oh, that wraps it up for SasqWatch.
All right, well, that was our episode on Night of the Demon. It was a little strange, but we'll see what happens next time with Adam. Maybe I'll hammer out a contract with him.
I'm always a mercenary for hire.
Yeah.
In the acting world, not in the Bigfoot poaching world.
Oh, yeah?
I'm trying to be friends with Bigfoot out there.
Well, we'll see how friendly Bigfoot is in our next film, which is Bigfoot from 1970. And then shortly after that flashback ends, there's a seventh flashback. Maybe it's 6, but it's that 6th or 7th flashback in the movie. And that one's Wanda saying that she ended up killing her father.
Right. No, she says that during the present, I guess, right? Doesn't
yeah,
she?
but then it shows. So if you're showing footage of the death, it has to flash back to it. And I love that the way she killed her father was she waited for him to go to the outhouse, and then she lit it on fire. And there you can hear him screaming, like, not this way! Don't let me burn! Lord, not this way!
Save me! Save me! Don't let me burn! Don't let me burn!
We'll see you all again on here next time on SasqWatch.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.